everybody. Welcome to Jiga. Well, Jiga's the least important part of this drive. That's the car I'm on. You're on a live afternoon safari with WildEarth TV, and just to our left-hand side, you see some elephants. I think the same three that we saw just around here this morning. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll just tell you a little bit about what you're doing if you've happened to stumbled across this website. You're on a live safari, like I say, an afternoon game drive here in the Greater Kruger National Park, and a small piece of the western sector of the Greater Kruger National Park called Juma. And to the west of us, another little piece of a reserve called Arathusa. And that's where we'll be operating this afternoon. My name is James Hendry, and I do like to hear from you. In fact, we all like to hear from you. So if you'd like to talk to us at all, comments or questions or anything else you'd like to say, hashtag Safari Live if you're on the tweet, or questions@wildearth.tv if you're on the email. There's a lovely little baby elephant there. So sweet. He's going to come out just beyond this little thicket. I'm not going to move because I don't want to startle them. On camera today we have Andrew. Andrew walked into a pole this morning, seemed to not do himself too much damage. Andrew, how was the Ziziphus?
It was okay.
We treated him this morning with some traditional remedies while on game drive. He looked ridiculous because he had a great big green sort of sticky goop on the front of his face for most of the day, so that was quite amusing. And then on the other vehicle we have Scott, and filming him today via the wildebeest. They are going off towards Arathusa side, and we are going to go, and once we've had a look at these wonderful elephants, we're going to go off to the east to have a look at Quarantine, an almost 3-year-old male leopard who was a great favorite of the show around here for a few years, from when he was born up until he went sort of nomadic, which is totally normal for leopards, of course. And he was found on a kill earlier this morning just south of us. We can see him from the road. He's not on the property that we operate on, but we can have a look at him. So that's the general plan for today. Like I say, you're welcome. It's lovely to have you on board. It's a balmy 27 degrees Celsius or 81 degrees Fahrenheit. There's another elephant right here, Andrew. And the elephants are just gently walking through what is not a particularly hot, but definitely quite warm afternoon. And they will come eventually to some water at some stage today, I think. And let me not forget, while we watch that elephant walking by, some of the most important people in this whole thing, of course, are the people in the final control room. They feed us your questions, and they operate all the technical stuff that's well beyond my sort of intellectual capabilities. And in the hot directing seat today we have Kirsty McLennan Smith, and next to her Tara Dales and Nikki Austin. Lovely little tiny small herd of elephants, unusual for this time of year because normally when the water starts to concentrate, so the herds tend to get a lot bigger. As I was saying this morning, elephant herds are not sort of fixed units like a lion pride might be. And the young one at the back a little bit nervous. He's just having a good look to see that we're not any threat. So only 4 of them in this herd. I'm going to go along the road a little bit. The one of them in the way front is lifting and playing with a sort of tree. And I'm sure he's trying to get at the roots. And what I would like you to try and do is try and see, look at their hips. Their hips are sticking out, and in all of them, in fact, and especially the one in front. I think that's because the nutritional status is obviously, they're hungry. It's a very difficult time of year for them to find enough to eat, and so they are quite hungry. These ones are very close to another 3 that we saw this morning, one of which clearly on her belly. And what was interesting was that we had some wonderful feedback from our viewers, thank you very much for it, about umbilical hernias in elephants. And the fact that one had been recorded, certainly in a Zimbabwean elephant, tried to fix it surgically, and that elephant died 10 days later. But they apparently are quite common in elephants, an umbilical hernia, but they do, and they normally will fix themselves. They've come from the same direction as those ones we watched this morning, and they also don't seem to be particularly relaxed. It's a little bit nervous, trying to get away from us really. I'm going to sneak a little bit forward. I don't think I'm going to drive off road after them because they're not that comfortable. So you can very clearly see she is lactating. You look behind her shoulder there, and I'm sure that little calf is her calf. And obviously her nutritional stress will be that much greater because she's eating for 2, having to find enough nutrition in this late dry season vegetation for her and her little calf. Go a little bit further forward. I think that little one is probably almost a year old. You can see it's small enough to fit under its mum's tummy at this stage, or certainly under her chest, and that's a good measure of how old they are. Once they turn a year old, they're normally just slightly too tall to walk underneath their mothers, and you can see there that that little fellow quite easily walk under his mother's chest. He's probably just about a year old. Trunk is still a hopeless collection of muscle fibers and nerve endings that, while very sensitive, is very difficult for the brain to learn to control. And that's why it's so much shorter than in the adults, proportionately, because otherwise they'd stand all over it while they walked. It's quite astonishing how evolution has construed to make an animal's nose the most prehensile and agile part of its body, such to the extent that without it an elephant obviously can't survive. The little thing running there. Running elephants is always so amusing because they can't actually run, of course. They're like speed walkers. If you're ever feeling sad, download a video of a speed walker doing a walk. It looks a little bit like that. They can't jump. They're one of the only mammals in the world that cannot jump. Ergo, they cannot run. Sorry, Andrew, I'm just going to go past this bush here in front. Give us a better view. That's really not the best view, but like I say, I don't think they're that comfortable. I'm not going to go bashing after them. And they're making their way towards an area called not Twin Dams, towards Treehouse Dam, which is quite a distance from here. So I think they'll probably, I don't know that they'll drink there. I think you'll find, turn north eventually and head towards Gowrie Dam, where there's some good fresh water, as opposed to the green and red mud and bits of moisture that now remain at Treehouse Dam. All right, Andrew, shall we go and see how that young leopard's doing?
Yes.
Right, we're going to leave these elephants, not because I don't love elephants very much. Like I say, I don't want to go bashing in after them. And so we might come back here. I think there are going to be quite a lot of elephants around because it's quite hot. And so keep watching the Djuma Dam cam, and you may find a couple of elephants coming down there, and we'll make our way up there certainly once we've had a look to see if the leopard is still there. While we're heading off towards quarantine, we're going to hand you over to Scott to see what he's doing. I think he's going off to Arathusa, but he'll give you an idea of what's happening, and I'll see you a little bit later, hopefully with a spotted cat.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board. We are viewing another one of the big five, but at the moment all you can see is its belly and a red-billed oxpecker feeding on it. They are such pretty birds, the red-billed oxpeckers, especially when you are so close to them. And it's looking for little parasites which it's going to pluck off that buffalo, doing it a great deal of good. It's a bachelor herd of buffalo bulls. There's usually around 35 of them or so in this herd. This individual doesn't look too good, and when we did arrive he was coughing slightly. And at this time of year, when it is so dry and harsh, a lot of the weaker or sickly animals really do lose condition quite quickly. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that individual. Anyway, like I said, welcome on board. My name's Scott, if you haven't met me before, and I'm teamed up with VM on camera. Sounds like he got off to a great start with James and had some cute moments with the elephants and a few youngsters. And now we've got, like I said, another member of the Big Five. It'll be interesting to see if we can see any others. I know this morning Brent managed to see a leopard, and that was the quarantine male, a leopard we haven't seen for quite some time. So that's exciting news that he is very nearby our property. And Brent was actually viewing him south of our southern boundary, but thankfully it was close enough to the road to see him from. So I think James might head over there a little bit later to see if he can get any more glimpses of him. And my plans are to head across to Arathusa. Now this morning, some of you may have heard that the Nkuhuma Pride successfully killed a buffalo just east of Arathusa on a property called Elephant Plains. So great that they successfully managed to do that. But interestingly enough, we got an update from Rob in the UK as well as from the Arathusa guides that something really interesting happened later on this morning's drive, and that is that not only about 20 to 25 hyena arrived on the scene with the Nkuhumas and started to chase the Nkuhumas off their buffalo kill, but also 3 Shimungwe lions, 2 lioness and 1 young male, arrived on the scene, and they proceeded to get chased by the Nkuhuma pride, mainly junior. And I'm told there was lions and trees everywhere, and then at one stage there were so many hyena that both prides of lion were being chased by the hyena, and they actually overthrew the Nkuhuma pride and took over that buffalo kill, which is now absolutely complete. And that bodes in our favor, not the lions, but hopefully that will mean they could head back onto Arathusa sooner than expected. Had those hyena not have stolen the kill, it's quite possible that the Nkuhuma pride would still be on Elephant Plains even tomorrow morning. So I'm going to head across to Arathusa in the hope that some of the lions, either the Nkuhuma pride or the Shimungwe 3, have come back onto Arathusa where we can view them. Anyway, let's take a closer look at some of these buffalo bulls before we head off. We're situated very close to Treehouse Waterhole at the moment, and actually I've just looked down now, some of them are actually going down into the water, so we will head down there and take a look. So they're spread out now, and there you can see VM's showing you what's going on at the water's edge, and there seems to be a little bit of action there. Some of them are wading into the water for a drink. I was hoping to see a yellow-billed oxpecker. There have been some around. I've only actually managed to see one since I've been here at Juma, but I know Brent didn't see one long ago, and I think it was actually on the same herd of buffalo. So they're not nearly as common as the red-billed oxpeckers that we have just seen. So it's worth keeping an eye out for those. They've got a much bulkier beak than the red-billed oxpecker, slightly larger and more robust. And it wasn't only Ron in the UK who sent us some updates, but also Morning Glory. And thanks very much for those updates, Morning Glory. And they are regarding the Juma Waterhole cam. She said that between drives there has been a hive of activity around that waterhole. Elephants, giraffe, buffalo and nyala, just to name a few of the species that Morning Glory saw. And I think James is in that general area, so hopefully he'll be able to find you some of those animals, even if they have moved away from the waterhole. He could find them nearby. And the great thing about this time of the year is the waterholes will really begin to get enjoyable about a very peaceful and still day like we're experiencing now. On our way to Arathusa, my plan is to head off and check the last area where Sindile, a young male leopard, was seen last night. I was actually the last person to see him late last night, and came back first thing in the morning and spent a lot of time on foot in the area where I last did see him, but had no chance or no luck in finding where he has headed off to. But that could have changed in the course of the day, and I want to keep working that general area even tomorrow morning in the hope that we'll find some tracks of Shadow coming to look for him. Now, Shadow is his mother, and he is still relying on her quite heavily for food and still guidance, but she's been off mating for the last 3 days, and she's a little bit premature, which means we're in for some interesting behavior, and it'll be really, really fascinating to see how it all unfolds, because at this stage she would give birth when he's around 15 months of age, which is about 3 months earlier than the earliest leopards will usually be kicked out of home for their mothers to be able to raise the next generation. So that's quite interesting. Something else that's quite interesting, however, I must stress I do not know how true it is, so we will get confirmation hopefully when I'm across on Arethusa. But I did hear a rumor that Shadow was seen mating with the Anderson male. Now, like I said, that still does need to be confirmed. I'm not entirely sure if it is true, but that in itself is something also incredibly interesting, because I wonder if she has then split up mating between Tingana and the Anderson male during that same 3 to 5 day mating period, so giving them each 2.5 days potentially, thus giving them both the false sense of fatherhood, which would have been an incredibly clever move on her behalf. What it'll also mean is we'll never be sure who his father or who the next generation of cubs' father is, and that in itself is also quite interesting, because quite often people will assume that just because a female was seen mating with one male leopard that he was then definitely the father of the cubs. But it's quite often that females will mate with multiple males, but quite often when they do that, it's also in a false estrus, so not necessarily in the same mating period as another male, but she'll come into a false estrus just to make him feel like he is the father. Anyway, aren't we so lucky to be able to get to know the animals, especially the leopards, so well out here, and to be able to know so much detail into their lives. It really is remarkable, and we are very fortunate to be in the situation, because there are many parts in Africa, and I've said this before, but it's important to say it again, where leopards are abundant but never seen. Here they are abundant and habituated. They do not see us humans as a threat and allow us close to them in the vehicles and allow us even just to spend time with them, whereas most often in a lot of wilderness destinations, leopards will be the most shy and elusive of the animals, and you'll barely ever get to see them. So this is our southern boundary. Quarantine was about 1.5 miles down to the east this morning with Brent, and like I said, I think James plans on popping in there a little bit later once it's cooled down. And anywhere from here, it wouldn't surprise me if young Sindile, a beautiful male leopard, could poke his head up. So keep your eyes peeled. Everywhere on the left we cannot go, but he certainly can. And on the right, I spent a lot of time on foot this morning. And it was fairly open, and I was confident I was going to find him. But no luck, and no indication of which direction he headed in from the last spot where I saw him. Always a little bit tricky deciding whether to scan around in the bushes and the vegetation for animals, and also to keep your eyes on the road looking for any of their tracks, which are such useful clues. So I'm trying to balance between looking up and looking down at the road. So this is where, on our left, where Sindile attempted to chase a tree squirrel, which ran up high into the marula tree, which is the bigger, thicker tree in the foreground. And Sindile went up this other tree over here, and he was clambering up on this branch. The squirrel was way up in the top of this marula, shouting down at Sindile, who was over there. But it made for a wonderful, wonderful sighting. And thereafter he crossed the road just in front of the vehicle here and headed off into the bush on our right. We can't see exactly where he went to from here, but he was out over there. And that's where I searched this morning, but with no luck. Who knows, maybe Shadow has already come back and collected them. That's another thing that I didn't mention, just because we don't know where they are or what's going on. We must be careful not to assume that they haven't already met up. And who knows, maybe she's already made a kill for him and they are enjoying feeding on it right this second. So we are approaching Arethusa. We're heading out a little bit earlier than most of the guides with guests at the moment, so I'm guessing they won't be out for another 15 minutes to half an hour, but I will get onto their radio frequency now, and as soon as one of them head out, hopefully I'll be able to get some updates as to exactly what happened with the lion after the hyena stole their kill. And also if there's any interesting updates from across there. Also about Shadow and the Anderson male, I'd like to confirm with them whether that is true or not. So there's some interesting information which I look forward to sharing with you. I've just seen some tracks. They look very much like Sindile is the leopard we're looking for, but I don't think they're fresh. Yeah, and he has been spending a lot of time here over the last few days, but I would like to just show you them for interest's sakes. So over here you can see where he walked up into the vegetation, but we don't often stop and show you the tracks because we're in such a rush to find the animal, whereas now it's a little bit different. You can see a small leaf has fallen into the pad of his track here, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 toes in front, and the next track is just up over there. But he has been spending basically the last 4 days in this general area, crisscrossing around and chasing squirrels and mongooses, and those tracks aren't fresh enough to warrant following up on, and I think they're from about 2 days ago. Well, here we are on Arethusa. We've just crossed on, and let's hope we get lucky here this afternoon. Now, earlier I mentioned that sorry, I've just come across some leopard tracks that look quite fresh. Anyway, let me go back a bit and take a closer look back here. Anyway, I was chatting earlier about Shadow and Tingana and the potential of her mating with the Anderson male, and Astralina has kindly sent through some information saying that WildEarth has actually in the past captured Shadow mating with the Anderson male and Tingana shortly after she lost some cubs. I'm not sure exactly when that was, so that's really interesting that that exact same thing has happened in the past, Astralina, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, the tricky thing is that VM's going for a Grand Caravan aeroplane. I bet none of you expected to see one of these on screen this afternoon. I think it's a Grand Caravan. Maybe not. Anyway, some guests are either flying in or out of one of the camps, aren't they lucky? Okay, there's leopard tracks up and down here, but I don't want to spend too much time in this area initially. I want to get a little bit deeper into Arethusa, because the lions were seen on the far eastern western boundary of Arethusa, but I do think that these could be tracks of Sindile from last night. And this is all the area where he likes hanging around, but I don't want to get caught up here looking for him. And we'll continue and maybe have a look for him a little bit later. Well, as we head on to Arethusa, we've got a request from Spusiso in Hammanskraal, and he would like to go and see the Arethusa airstrip and the open, beautiful terrain there. Spusiso, I would love to take you there, but the airstrip's busy undergoing renovations. It's getting tarmacked so that bigger airplanes can land there. And I think that should be completed by the 1st of September. That at least was the goal, Spusiso. So it's certainly not the beautiful, serene place it usually is. There's a lot of heavy machinery there. And I assure you, anywhere but there is a good place to go this afternoon. But like I said, from the 1st of September, hopefully the construction will be over. And we'll be able to go back and enjoy the same pretty scenery, although it just won't be a dirt airstrip, it will be a tarmac one. Well, as VM and myself head deeper into Arethusa in the hope of finding new lions, I've got good news, and that is that James is back at the site of quarantine where he had his kill. I'm not sure if the leopard's there or not, but James is there, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. I wish I was coming along, but see you later and enjoy.
Stay there, stay there. Hello everybody. Welcome back to Jiga. We are at a sighting of quarantine. Unfortunately, my erstwhile cameraman is unable to see what I am seeing. Now, Andrew, just lift the camera's pan up slightly. Yeah, now come to the right. Now, you see that fallen tree that you're following along now?
There he is.
There he is.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so it's not a great sighting, everybody, but there is young Quarantine, and this is my first meeting with him. I'm very excited about it. Unfortunately, he has chosen to kill a kudu south of us, where we cannot go. And he is lying there. We drove up and down here 3 times, trying to get a look in, and eventually I managed to see just that flicking ear there. And that's all we've got. That's probably why we didn't see him, actually. Right, well, that was a great sighting, Andrew. Wonderful leopard. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, let's carry on.
Let's carry on. Okay, we'll go back a little bit and show you what he killed, and I'll give you a little recap of the events of the morning. Well, no wonder we didn't see him when we went past the first time. So, just in from here, Andrew, say when?
When?
There is the rib cage of what used to be a kudu. That kudu is now extinct, having been killed by Quarantine, I would say, probably early yesterday evening. That is a big carcass for a sub-adult male leopard to be taken. Well, he's not sub-adult now. I mean, he's almost at adulthood, but not quite at full size yet. And that looks like a pretty big kudu, I have to say. And apparently this morning he was stashing bits and pieces of it around in the marula trees throughout this area. We went back to check a tree where he apparently put the lungs. Those he has devoured. And around about the carcass, you can see a few different kinds of birds of prey. Now, the first one we're going to show you there is a white-backed vulture, the most common vulture that we get here. Thank you, Andrew. So known, the white-backed vulture. Why is that, Andrew? Because he has a
White back.
correct, a white back, which you can't see, but for when he's in flight. Now, there's also I think there are two tawny eagles. Can you see them there, Andrew?
Just
I
got a
don't think
brief-
we're not going to get a better view. So there are two blobs you can see in the tree there that constitute tawny eagles. The one on the left is the most obvious one, with its roughly mottled feathers. Yeah, they're both tawny eagles, definitely. Now, tawny eagles are often, like battaliers, what vultures will follow to kills, because they tend to get there a bit earlier than the vultures, because they don't fly quite as high. And they, in turn, are normally following battalier, which like to come to the carcasses first. And we knew that Quarantine would be close by, not far away from where he'd made his kill, because, as Andrew pointed out, the birds of prey would be on the ground, devouring the carcass, if he hadn't been around. So I'm afraid that's about it for our leopard sighting this afternoon. I think we'll probably press on now. We'll just sneak forward and try and get one more look at Quarantine. I've never seen him before. I've had a couple of experiences with his brother, Kunyuma, and in case you perhaps don't know, they are the offspring of Kurula, the queen of Juma, a very beautiful, slightly shorter nosed than normal leopard, who is about 11 years old and lives. This used to be the core of her territory. She seems to have been spending quite a lot of time south now and then further east of our boundary. Her tracks were last seen heading east into a reserve called Torchwood, just next to our boundary. And they are her sons from a previous litter. She's lost one litter since then and has been seen mating fairly recently, so hopefully they will have some little siblings soon. The two brothers are now what we call nomadic. They're in a nomadic stage where they're not big enough or old enough to take a territory yet. So they'll hang around their natal territory, but they'll avoid the big adult males of the area. If they meet their mother, there'll probably be an element of friendliness about it, but they are completely independent now of her. As you can see, he's killing a very large kudu. That's well beyond probably well beyond what his mother's able to do. So, marvelous sighting. I'm sad not to have had more time looking at his face. His brother apparently, well, I know his brother is a much more irascible character. He's certainly given my vehicle a rev once or twice. He's got up and growled at us, unlike this Quarantine, who's apparently completely relaxed and chilled to the max, as Andrew would say. I see a game drive coming in here. And of course what we're doing here is watching the kill of... Now Scott is off looking for Sindile. I get these complex relations mixed up from time to time. Sindile is Quarantine's uncle. No, he's not. He's Quarantine's nephew. And Lisa Osborne has pointed out that perhaps Quarantine needs to take a stroll over to the eastern side there and try a western side and try and get hold of Sindile and give him a couple of lessons on hunting. I think Sindile does pretty well on the hunting front myself. He's not catching things like this yet, but he is learning pretty fast. And Sindile is now a year old. I'm just going to tell these guys that this leopard is over here. There's the game drive coming in. We don't have radio communications with him. I think they've spotted him. Okay, chaps, I'm afraid that's our leopard sighting. I'm just going to sneak forward slowly and see if we can't get another look. Maybe this game drive will wake him up a bit. There he's up. So we can have another glimpse of the back end of his head. How kind of him to show us that. I know there are a number of you who are perhaps extremely happy to be seeing Quarantine again. You shared some of his sort of informative years, I suppose, growing up around quarantine clearings from which he gets his name. And yeah, I'm sure it's I've always found when a male leopard goes independent like this and disappears, it's very sad, not when you stop seeing them. And it's always very exciting when they do come back into an area and you start to see them again. So it is lovely to see Quarantine, and like I've said, this is my first meeting with him. Although I'm not really sure that this constitutes a meeting, with him turning his back to me in an entirely very impolite fashion, I feel. What is this impolite, Andrew?
Just to you, James.
Just to me. He's exhausted after killing that kudu and devouring most of it. Anyway, it's very nice to see that he and Kunuma are in fine fettle. Kunuma, I think we had tracks of the other day, actually. And, 3 weeks ago, Brian and I found him and had a wonderful time with him. He'd also killed a kudu, interestingly. So the two brothers are clearly very good at taking fairly large prey. His kudu, unfortunately, was lifted off him by some pilfering hyenas. And that's the one disadvantage of taking down a big animal, if you're a leopard, is that if it's too big, it becomes almost impossible to hoist into a tree. And so you can't escape the attentions of hyenas. Although he seems to have made short work of this kudu on his own. Beautiful. Okay, I think we're going to leave his couple of spots lurking there. We might actually come past here a little bit later. And what I'm going to do is turn around and head up towards Biffle's Hook Waterhole, and then maybe on our way back to Gowrie Waterhole we'll turn around and come back past here and see if he hasn't moved a little closer to the road. Okay, wasn't that wonderful? Andrew, are you happy to see him again?
Very happy.
I'm most pleased to have seen him. I've heard a lot about him from all of you, or not all of you, but certainly some of you who've spent so much time with him. And I hope you're very happy to have seen him again. Hi, old fella. Just do an about turn. In fact, we'll go up Leadwood. If that's all right with you, Andrew?
Perfectos.
Perfectos. This is just a nice opportunity for me to just reiterate that while we are part of a much larger wildlife area of about, in the Sabi Sands, of 60,000 hectares, there's obviously a patchwork of smaller properties with individual landowners, and we can't, various ones have got different traversing agreements with each other, and there are various vehicle limits and complicated permutations and algorithms for how and when you can go certain places. The upshot of which is we don't traverse south of here, but the animals, of course, are free to come and go anywhere they please. So that's why we can't drive south to have a better look at old Quarantine. Andrew, where's this road? Have I gone mad? No, it's just up here. seems to be in the same area that his mother's hanging out at the moment, and there is an element of safety attached to that, I believe. Not because she'll protect him, but because he does know the leopards in this area, and so the threats, his major threat now, of course, is any bigger predator, so hyenas and perhaps lions, and of course big territorial male leopards. And if he hangs around his mother's territory, chances are that he will be within his father's territory. That's normally the case, and so big male leopards are not so much a threat to him until he's big enough to defend himself. And his father, I believe, is Mvula. Is that correct, Andrew? I think his father is Mvula. An elephant seems to have blocked the road slightly here. So just to reiterate too, we have left quarantine because he is south of the boundary where we cannot get to him, and every time he puts his head down, I'm afraid we don't see any of him at all. I'm definitely going to go back there to have a look. So Lisa, I know you've missed him a lot, but unfortunately we can't drive to where he is, and he's shortly going to be inundated with a whole lot of other vehicles from the other area, from the other reserve to the south of us. So we had a quite nice look at the back of his head, and I will go back a little bit later just to have a look, but we unfortunately can't go down there. But if you've got any questions about him or comments, please send them through. I'm more than happy to answer them while we drive. So while we are driving, I'll tell you a little bit about how we identify the leopards. And one of the ways, the most sort of traditional way, as I've said before, is the spot pattern above the whiskers. And leopards have obviously whiskers like normal cats, and just above that, above the nose, they've got a sort of unique spot pattern. And so, for example, Sindile has got 3 spots on the left and 3 on the right, so he'd be known as a 3-3 male. And lion tracks here. I don't think they're very fresh though. So that would be how you do it. So you take a photograph or have a look with your binoculars at the nose area, and that spot pattern is always a good way to tell. But there are many ways, because as we all know from the cliche, Andrew, what is the cliche I'm going to use? A leopard does what? Or cannot do what?
Change its spots.
Yes, exactly. A leopard cannot change its spots. So there are a number of different ways that you can, of different identifying markers on the spots. And one of the best examples that are, especially people who've spent a long time around our leopards, I've just got a little steenbok here, which we'll stop and have a look at. A lot of people have pointed out to me the word wow is written across Quarantine's mother, across her forehead, and so that's an obvious, I mean, that's just sort of random agglomeration of spots that's written that. That's a little steenbok running away at great speed. So Diane, that's you can do it from any sort of identifying mark. The facial spots are normally the most obvious ones, and then, as also been pointed out for 1 or 2 of the leopards here, there's sometimes a bit of a runway of spot spot-free fur that runs up the back, and a couple of our viewers have pointed out that a few of our leopards in this area have one of those. So there are a number of ways of doing it. The most traditional way, though, and I think the easiest way if you're not tremendously familiar with the leopards, is to look for that spot pattern. So, for example, if we were to, in a year's time, come through here and find a big adult male walking through here, and we didn't know who he was, and we didn't have the number of viewers that we have here who've watched Gunuma and Quarantine grow up the way they have, so they know just about all of the spots on the leopards. But if I was a new person in this area, the first thing I'd do would be to look at the spot pattern above the nose, and that will give me a good idea as to what it is. And then that's a really nice identikit. If you can get a photograph, that's a nice a way of sort of identifying them. So that's basically how to do it. I hope that answers your question. And of course then, I mean, the better you know leopards, the more you can tell. So I mean, Karula is just obvious. She's got a slightly shorter nose than some leopards. She's a bit paler than some leopards. Their colors do change a little bit as they get older. They do tend to get a bit paler. But some leopards are definitely more golden than others. So yeah, lots of different ways, Diane. Thank you for that. Some impalas in front of us. A little bachelor herd of 3 impala. And they'll also be, you can see they're actually looking pretty well. They're not looking nutritionally stressed at all. And that's probably because they browse and they graze. So they start to struggle after the other animals do. And Andrew, can you just come down towards these trees here? Yep, those two there. Yeah, we go. Read my mind. That bark that's been removed there is from an impala bashing his horns and scratching his head against the tree. That's at exactly the height that they would do that. And there's an element of territorial marking to that, but not really at this time of the year. I think it's probably more an itch than anything else. You can see some more. Buffalo will do the same thing. I haven't seen kudu doing it. In fact, I think I have seen kudu doing it. And wildebeest will do it on the ground. And as we know, buffalo do it extensively. Well, the most graceful antelope. Not that any of them are particularly ungraceful. We eventually did find, by the way, we were looking for the hyena den this morning, and Steph found it on foot the other day, and we eventually did get a car in there this morning, but there were no hyenas there, so I haven't gone back there. I may try again later this evening, and we'll see if we can't pick up that little hyena cub, which is such a magnificent privilege to be able to watch grow up. So for those of you who perhaps don't know, there has been a hyena den around the place, and they moved it the other day and we couldn't find it. So Ramey, fear not, we have found the hyena den, and Brent saw some hyenas in it yesterday, and we will hopefully find further hyenas in it later today. There are some lion tracks heading along here. A single male, and they did find a single male on Torchwood this morning, so I think that's what these tracks are. They don't look very fresh to me. And the light's not great, otherwise I'd show you what I'm looking at. can find a nice one along here. We're driving along looking for the first signs of spring, of course, as well. And the first sign of spring is going to be, of course, the flowering knobthorns. Right, we're going to nip quickly across to Scott. He's got a much better spotted cat sighting than we just had, so enjoy that and I'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. You wouldn't believe who we've just found. I'm going to stop now just so that you can get a glimpse. It's a female leopard, and I'm pretty certain it's Shadow. VM actually spotted her tracks on the road. We looked down, assessed that they were fresh, and looked up and saw her lying about 30 meters off the road. There's no sign of any males with her, but interestingly enough, she was lying up about 30 meters away from where we all saw Anderson male for the first time. Wow, I really didn't expect that. That was a rasping call, an incredible call to hear if it is the first time joining, and I'm sure she's going to do it again. So let's try and get ahead of her. And see if we can't get her vocalizing again, hopefully towards us. I wonder who she's trying to call. Hard to say. Certainly too far away to be trying to call Sindile, her cub. And maybe she is looking for the Anderson male. The radio, sadly, is not working too well here, and I can hardly copy the Arethusa guide, so I haven't been able to confirm whether or not she did in fact mate with the Anderson male. And I'm hoping now she's going to walk straight past us. Now, for any of you viewers who are leopard ID experts, I'd love you to confirm that this is actually Shadow. It looks like it to me. And she looks quite hungry. She would have been using up all of her energy for mating over the last few days, and maybe she only stopped very recently. And because of that hunger, she may be interested in any potential meals that she comes across. Although with her calling so loudly like that, she's going to give away her position to all potential prey in the area. Well, 2 leopards so far this afternoon. And our luck really has been incredible over the last week or so. I'm told Quarantine was a little bit far away from the road, but at least you did get to see him. And that leopard and this leopard we're looking at now are both from the same female called Karula. Shadow, I think, was the first successful cub that Karula did raise, which is this individual here, whereas Quarantine and Kunuma, one of which you've just seen now, Quarantine, are 2 of her most recent litters. I'm just going to get onto the radio again because I don't think anyone copied my message earlier that I have found her. So it's important that we share this information with them. stations. Not sure if anyone copied my update, but I've located Karula. She's mobile east, away from east side Marikeni, about 200, 300 meters north of Seif Span. Affirmative, go ahead. I meant shadow, I'm not sure which name I used. Okay, copy, perfect. Just let them know we are directly east of Broken Dam, basically, heading east. Apologies for that, but like I said, so important that we share this awesome sighting with everyone else. Well, she's sniffing these bushes very intently, and watch closely. There's a strong chance she may do a phlegm grimace, where she'll curl up her lips, exposing not only her teeth, but also a special organ which helps her process smell better. Not this time though. Here she goes. Awesome! Another vocalization. It's incredible how many calls we've actually heard from this specific leopard over the last few days, and the last time we were certain she was trying to call Sindile, who she couldn't find with a softer contact call. Now, while she vocalizes like this, we should not be at all surprised to see another leopard arrive on the scene. I wonder if she isn't looking for the Anderson male, because she'll know full well that this is the area that he moves through. Okay, well, the good news is Ryan has now got our view. He's joining us. He's the head guide here at Arathusa, and he can just follow us on now and join us in the sighting. Well, what a luck, and well done to VM for spotting those leopard tracks, because had he have not spotted them, we wouldn't have stopped and probably would have driven straight past her. And it's been incredible to see how good not only VM but all the cameramen have got at their tracking, and are hugely helpful to us on the drives. Well, we're in a beautiful big open clearing now, so we're bound to get a few great shots of her walking past us. So get ready to take some screenshots, and make sure, if you don't know how to take a screenshot, to quickly learn, because it's so much fun and a great way for you to get involved on the safari. Like I said earlier, we shouldn't be surprised if another leopard doesn't come onto the scene. And she will know this as well. Here she goes. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. She was facing straight towards us. And who knows, maybe she can already hear another leopard responding to her. That's inaudible to us. Her hearing is so much better than ours, and that's always important to remember. It may be a two-way conversation, but for us it just appears that she's talking for now. Having said that though, her body language doesn't indicate to me that she has potentially, or she is potentially communicating with another. But time will tell. She's going to walk right behind the back of the vehicle now. After a small toilet break. Well, wasn't that great? Facing straight towards us, letting off that rasping call. I hope you're all enjoying this as much as I am. Now, she is heading in an easterly direction. And if she continues for about another 2 miles in this direction, that's interesting because it's not the usual scent marking position that a leopard would usually assume, but I think she still is certainly leaving a scent trail behind here. So even though she wasn't spraying onto a tree, which is the usual way of scent marking, that could still be some form of a message that she's leaving behind. Anyway, as I was saying, she is heading east, and if she continues to head east, she will get to her cub Sindile, but like I said, about 2 miles she would need to continue moving in. So still quite a way off, but at least she is tending in that general direction. I think she does have other business to do though, and that's we can hear her calling. And the information I've just passed on to you is a question, or answer the questions of both Matthew, only 9 years old, and Christy. But just to reiterate, she is heading in the right direction, but has about 2 miles to go before she gets into that general area of where she last left him. So at the moment, I don't think she's calling hoping to find him. I think she's calling to tell other leopards a message, either to call a male or to inform other females that she is in the area. A lot of the time I think people just assume that the males will compete for territories, but just with like lion and the prides of lioness, female leopards will compete very heavily for territories, and she'll be ensuring them that they will not interfere with taking over from one another. And I jumbled my words there because as Ryan drove past, he made a funny remark to all of his guests about me, and that's what threw me off. I mentioned that she could be communicating with another leopard and we simply cannot share it, and we've got a great question through from Mauricia on this topic, and she would like to know how far away can we as humans be from a leopard and still hear it calling. And anywhere between 2 and 3 kilometers, so 1.5 to 2.5 miles I'd say is the maximum you could be away from a leopard to hear it calling. whereas lions you can hear from 9 kilometers away, so they are a lot louder. At this time of the year, Mauricio, it's a great time for listening because there's not too much vegetation around, which would usually absorb the sounds or dampen them. And also on a day like this, because it's not very windy, that also means that it's good conditions. Now, she is currently heading straight towards the Arethusa waterhole, and I'm sure she will go down and have a drink there. It's a hot afternoon, so that's something that I look forward to looking at. It's been a while since I've seen a leopard drinking. Just trying to choose the best spot to wait for her. And thanks so much for sending your questions through, everyone. If you don't know how to send a question, it's very easy. You would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And Dennis has just sent through a question also on the topic of calling, and we would like to know, do leopards know the individual calls of other leopards, i.e. would Tingana and the Anderson male know that it's specifically her calling? And yes, they certainly know who is calling. There's no doubt about that. Now, I haven't picked the best pathway here, but let's see what she does. The way she's stopping and looking up ahead, it's as if she's seen something there. Maybe not though. I am going to continue reversing and get us into a better spot though, because there's a good opportunity to get an opening if we just reposition. Tree snuck up on me there. I'm making a meal of this, but it'll be worth it. Squeeze tight, everybody. Oh, we picked up a little souvenir along the way. Enjoy one last view of her. She's heading down into quite a thick area where I fear if she does not come for a drink, we may lose her. So this may be our last view of her, at least for a while. Like I said, it's an impenetrable Tambuti thicket that she's heading down towards. But even if she doesn't head in there, we'll spend some time in this area hoping to relocate her. Yep, not looking good, straight across the road. Look at her tail arched up like that. I love it when she does that. And it's a trait she has possibly picked up from her mother, Karula, who often does the same thing.
Sindile does it too.
Okay, VM's just pointed out that her cub Sindile also tends to do it from time to time. I haven't been lucky enough to see him doing it. At least not that I can remember. Well, just as you think you've made a fairly rational call by saying that I thought you would go down to the waterhole, which is just across the way from us, it's not far at all, she's veered off in the other direction. Anyway, like I said, because it is very thick here, myself and VM have got our work cut out for us trying to relocate her on the other side. So we're going to send you across to James, and we will hopefully call you back as soon as we found her again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga. I believe you've had a wonderful sighting of Shadow with, again, some astonishing behavior. I'm a bit jealous of that and amazed at what she's doing and fascinated as to what she's going to do. Now, you're not in fact looking at Shadow. No, you are now looking at Bob, the bachelor of Buffelshoek, who seems to have returned here to the Buffelshoek waterhole, and I don't know why or where he's been. I suspect, as we think he is a young bull, that he's probably been off at a larger waterhole trying to find some way into a territory or into a pod. Now, the other thing I want you to look at, and if you can just zoom out a little bit, please, and then pan down a little bit, tilt down a little, that's it. Now you can see just dotted about the water on the surface are a number of little spikes. Can you see those spikes, Andrew? You see what I'm looking at?
These little spikes, yeah.
Those little spikes there. And there's some others the other side as well. And those, of course, are the heads of terrapins. Probably serrated hinged terrapins. And they hang around in these larger water bodies. And a terrapin, for those of you who don't know, is like a freshwater turtle. And they hang around these larger water bodies eating algae and insects and various other things. And what they really like to eat, of course, is the ticks off animals that come into the water. And it is a sight to behold, a terrapin cleaning the underside of a buffalo bull in the water. They're like the sort of oxpeckers of the water, if you like. Quite sweet little things, until you try and pick them up. And let me assure you, you will only ever try and pick a terrapin up once. And that is because they exude a substance that smells so foul. You don't get it off your hands for weeks, and no one will talk to you until you've got the stink off of yourself. It's an excellent defensive mechanism. You can see them just fossicking about in the algae there, hoping to pick up the odd invertebrate to eat. And they're called a serrated hinged terrapin because there are two sides to the shell. The back is called the carapace and the front is called the plastron. And on the plastron, just where the front legs curl into the shell,
Your hat was coming.
oh sorry, just when they curl into the shell, there's a hinge which closes up and just provides a bit of extra security. Sorry, I believe my head was getting in the way. I'm being yelled at by Andrew, and now because of the delay from the final control. And then just to the right of those terrapins, Andrew, is a little bird. Can you see it? Where's it gone? No, there it is. That's a three-banded plover. Little water bird, and one of the only plover species that doesn't migrate away from here. Oh, sorry, I mean one of the only wading birds that doesn't migrate away from here. So all the sandpipers and things disappear overseas, and the little plover will stay here all year round, fossicking again for little invertebrates. It's got a little insect-eating beak, as you can see. Beautiful colors. Lovely red beak and black tip. So all is at peace here at Buffelshoek Dam. Not much seems to have come down to drink during the day, although we weren't here all day, of course, so we're not sure. But I think we're going to press along now. And what we're going to do is go back out onto the eastern boundary, and I'm going to go back down it and just go past quarantine again and just see if we can't have a look-see if he hasn't come maybe slightly closer to the border. I don't think he will have, but that's what we're going to do, and that's our plan from now. Andrew, is that okay with you?
Wonderful.
Oh, good. One must check with Andrew every so often. He likes to be included in these things, and especially after he walked into that pole. One never knows. we all moved house today, and so the pole that attacked Andrew in the dead of the dawn this morning is no longer a threat to him. Are you pleased about that, Andrew? Good stuff. Oops. What did I hit? An extremely obvious tree behind us. Yes, that's what I hit, everybody. Whoops. On we go. Very nice question from a new viewer. Vincenzo, you're most welcome, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for sending through a question. Any chance of seeing yellow-billed kites? We do see them here. They're not the most common raptor around, but I know that they are back from overseas. They've certainly been seen down on the coast. Lots and lots of them in Natal, but we do see them here every so often, so I will definitely keep an eye out for them. Thank you for that, Vincenzo. And please keep sending through your comments, and if you've got any other bird requests, send them through too, and we'll do our best to find them. We had a request this morning for I think it was from Laura or Siberia, one of the two, and you wanted to see a white-bellied sunbird, which we did manage to find you, although it was flying at Mach 3 at the time, and so it was virtually unidentifiable, but for its call. We got another wonderful question from a new viewer whose name is I can't really get. I'm going to ask for it again, but asking about the lion prides in the area. Very nice question there. You basically want a recap of who's where and what and how it all fits together at the moment. At the moment, I think you're in Pretoria, so welcome from the capital of magnificent South Africa, and nice to have you on board. There are a number of lion prides that use Djuma or bits of Djuma. Now you must remember that our lion prides itch. I think your name is Itch. I don't believe that's your birth name, but we'll call you Itch if you like. Itch. A lion pride's territory is about 6,000 hectares in total. Maybe a little bit smaller, say 4,500 to 6,000 hectares. And we're operating only on 1,500 hectares. So there are not many lion prides. Ooh, look at that. You get him. He's trying to hide from us. Oh, he goes. Got him there?
Yes.
Cardinal woodpecker, everybody. Beautiful little woodpecker. Look at the wonderful colors. Itch, I will get back to you. I think that's a cardinal. It is a cardinal. Cardinal, so named for that little red cap, which of course makes it look like a what, Andrew?
A bishop.
A cardinal, yes, correct. Just make very sure of my identification here before some extremely clever viewer jumps on top of me with good reason. I'm just starting to doubt myself slightly, thinking it might be golden-tailed, but I don't think it is. All right, while I'm identifying that bird, we're going to nip across to Scott, who's got a monitor lizard, which is quite rare to see, and it might move off. So we're going to go quickly across to Scott, and I'll see you now.
Well, it may appear like nothing is there, but take a close look. On the right of the vertical trees on the left of your screen, you'll see a Nile monitor lizard. It was moving, but it's just started leaning up against that log. Oh, no ways. There's another one. Maybe they're going to be mating. And if they do, they might make a bit of a commotion, and in doing so, get killed by Shadow. She's lying up not far away. VM's just going to pan across. As you can see, we've got a lot of bushes. It's very thick here. Shadow's just off to our right. So VM, just going to show you her in there. Like I said, very, very thick, but not at all far away from these monitor lizards. She took a drink down in the riverbed below us. There's a small little pond there, and is now resting. And sadly, that's the closest we can get to her. But let's take a closer look at these monitors and see what happens next. People are just calling me on the radio, so let me chat with them quickly. She's lying up that little pond west of the dam, and not good visual. I've got 1 out of 5 visual for now. Welcome back, everyone. Apologies. It appears like the Arathusa Game Drive channel cuts out the signal from time to time of the broadcast, but you didn't miss anything. And I am very interested to see what happens with these monitor lizards. The one at the back's getting closer to the one in the front. And she will certainly know that. I'm guessing that it's a she in front and a he at the back, but I could be wrong. But the one in the front certainly does know that the other one's there, but it's almost playing dead at the moment, not showing any acknowledgements of the one approaching her. Well, they were moving a lot quicker when they came into frame, but sadly they have slowed down somewhat. Just got another vehicle arriving into the site, so I'm just going to point out where exactly this leopard is. Afternoon, Peter. Good. She's lying up at about 2 o'clock from my vehicle.
I see her.
Oh, there's been some movement. What happened there, Vim?
It just moved. The one on the right.
Okay.
Nothing major.
Okay. I was just pointing out to Pete there where the leopard was, and thankfully his sharp eyes managed to pick her up quicker than I expected. I've never seen monitor lizards mating. So this could be... Oh no, I lie. I think I actually did see them mating. I can't actually remember whether it was live or whether we were on a joyride with some of the staff members, but at Djuma Waterhole we did see 2 interlocked. Initially we thought they were fighting, but it did turn out in the end that they were mating. What's interesting about these now monitor lizards is that they are actually clever enough to sometimes use termite mounds as their incubators, because the termites that farm fungus in this area, the fungus growing termites, need to maintain a constant temperature within their termitariums, within their farms, farming fungus on their feces. The monitor lizards can lay their eggs in there and they get incubated, and not only incubated, but once the eggs have been laid inside, once the mother monitor has burrowed her way into the mound, the termites will then rebuild the mound Well, I just stopped there because Shadow started speaking, and I just wanted to let her finish her sentence. Sadly, I don't have any idea what she was saying or who she was saying it to, but that was her, letting out that rasping call. Oh, look closely back to the monitor. Sorry, VM. They were almost kissing one another earlier. Tongues flicking forward at one another. And it's all happening here. Anyway, as I was saying, the termites will rebuild the mound, encasing the eggs inside so it's safe from other predators until the little eggs hatch and they just dig their way out. Well, I hope they do that little interaction again. They were head to head with their flickering forked tongues touching one another.
Shadows on the move.
Okay, well spotted, VM. It would look like she's going down for another drink, perhaps. It's very thick, so I can't see too much of what's going on, and I don't want to leave these... Oh, look at the monitors, heads twitching there. Are they doing a bit of a love dance? Kind of torn as to what to do now. I can't see the leopard, but we will thankfully get an update from Pete as to where she's headed. But this is really unique behavior, so let's keep an eye on them. It's not something we get to see very often. As their name suggests, the Nile monitor, also known as the water monitor, they do rely on water, and these could have come away from the Arethusa Dam, which is not far away from here, or who knows, possibly their home is the little pond just down to our right where Shadow has been drinking. They do also have a cousin out here called the rock monitor, which looks very similar. The coat isn't as colorful, and it's got a slightly larger and more robust head. Look at his tongue flicking out there, or the bigger one's tongue. And he'll be smelling the air. Each fork in the tongue, you could say, is like a nostril, but it picks up scent, and then
Here she comes.
when the snake, or in this case the lizard, puts her forked tongue back into her mouth, there's two receivers, one for each fork in the tongue, and each receiver will then process the smell. Take a quick close look here, folks. I know the monitors are great quality, but here comes Shadow straight past us, just behind the back of the vehicle. So very fortunate she's come out of the very thick area that she was in earlier. And we are now sadly going to probably have to leave these monitor lizards in the fear of missing out on any action that unfolds with her. And thankfully they didn't get too serious with any mating business. I'm sure that's what they are doing. They're certainly courting, but it doesn't look like any serious action is going to happen now. So let's carry on and keep an eye on Shadow now that she's moved out. What I'm going to try and do, not to be rude, is just sneak ahead of Pete, because his limousine takes quite a while to maneuver, but I think I've missed that window of opportunity already, so we'll let him go first. The guides here have a much trickier job than the Safari Live crew, because we're in very short vehicles, probably 2/3 the length of their vehicle, and it makes a huge difference when off-roading and navigating through these tight spots. Despite this, with the help of the vehicle, you'll notice I still stalled it. into some wonderful afternoon sunlight. Let's hope she continues to do that. Beautiful. What is it that's getting her so worked up? It's almost as if she's flossing her teeth with that piece of grass. But she's smelling it very intently. The smell is what's getting her. Really interesting. I wonder what it is that's causing her to sniff this grass so intently. Occasionally they'll eat grass, but that certainly isn't her intentions now. Shame, it sounded like she started choking towards the end of that call, and maybe her voice is just hoarse from lots of vocalizations over the last few days. Well, another wonderful vocalization, and this really doesn't get much better. Just got a question through from Laura in Pennsylvania, and Laura picked up that I said she was heading back towards Sindile earlier in that general direction. She's still got a long way to go, Laura, but if she does get there and continues to call, Laura's interested to know what would happen if he returned to her calls as well as a male leopard. Well, if it was Tingana, that wouldn't be a problem, Laura, because Tingana has been seen with Sindile a number of times and believes to be his father. So Tingana's completely comfortable with Sindile, and that wouldn't be a problem. But if another male leopard was to arrive onto the scene, like the Anderson male, he would kill Sindile. So I don't think she would try to attract any attention to Sindile with other male leopards. If she knew they were in the area, she would rather go to them to mate with them, and she knows where they move, and I think that's who she's trying to communicate with now, either the Anderson male or other female leopards in this area. So I don't think we have to worry about anything regarding Sindile. What's going to be, and what already looks interesting to me, is that she's not heading east back towards Sindile. I think she may have just come down to the spot for a drink, and now she's heading back almost exactly in the direction that she's come from, where we found her. So maybe she's going back to look for the Anderson male, who knows? But she certainly at this stage doesn't seem to be tending east. She's heading directly north and a little bit west. Okay, well, she moved off quite a long distance there, so it's time to now loop ahead of her again. Thanks so much for all the questions that keep streaming in. The next one's from Donna, and she would like to know and confirm that is this the reason why Shadow would mate with multiple males to give them the false sense of fatherhood? And yes, she certainly would, because male leopards will only kill cubs that are not their own. So she's doing it to try and increase her cubs' likelihood of surviving through to adulthood by making as many males in the area think that they are their father. Sorry, Vian. It's really tricky deciding where to stop and wait for her to walk past us to make it the most beneficial. I think this is going to work here. Just like earlier, oh, she thought about calling again there. She might start up again. Watch closely. She just let off that initial, that initial little rasp, but then stopped. Maybe she realized or remembered how her throat felt after the last time she did that. Well, she was there. She comes. Beautiful. Well, she's basically heading back, it looks like, in the exact same direction that she came from. And won't it be interesting to see why she's going back there? Maybe there is some food there already. It doesn't look like she's fed on anything. I've speculated that she could be looking for the Anderson male in order to try and mate with him and give him also the false sense of fathership of hopefully the next generation that she's going to give birth to. And Lynn in Michigan's asked a great question. She's interested to know that if Shadow does in fact find Anderson male right now, will she mate with him for another 3 or 4 days before heading back towards Sindile? It's a good point, Lynn. Sorry, Lynn. But again, Shadow started speaking. And we really have been spoiled. So if you've only joined the show in the last week or so, it's not that common to have as much leopard vocalizations as we've had over the last week. You can hear at the end of her call though, she is sounding a little bit tired and it's not sounding as neat and polished as it should. But back to your question, Lynn, I'm not sure what would happen. 3 or 4 days is quite a long time to leave Sindile unattended. I would be more worried about her condition though, because at least Sindile has got during the day to rest and relax. He's not burning up too much energy, and he is also capable of hunting for himself, so he will be able to get the odd small meal if push comes to shove, whereas she is so focused on the task at hand. She looks very, very hungry. I love watching them walk off into the distance like this. While we reposition, I can chat with Mauricia. How are you doing? All the way in Texas. It's good to have you on board with us. Mauricia is asking whether Tingana may respond to these calls, or is he not responding to them because he knows he's already mated with her. I'm not sure, Mauricia. I really would love to know what it is that's causing her to call, and love to know who she is actually trying to call. But I guess it maybe even could be Tingana. Maybe she's not finished with him, and maybe he shook her off his tail, and now she's looking for him again. I mean, there's so many different things that could have happened without our knowing, and we can only guess as to what it could be. And then even then, the guesses, at least mine, I'm not too confident about at the moment. But what I am confident about is that she's going back into the very same area where we found her. And what that means is that we can expect to see something there, surely something. Otherwise, why would she be going back? You may have noticed the person sitting on the special chair on the front of the other vehicle, and that is a tracker seat with the tracker. And they've got those seats on the front of the vehicles in order to be able to spot tracks easily on the road. VM has to try and avoid showing the vehicles as much as possible. That's why he's not showing you now, but I just thought I would explain to you. Looked like she stopped for another toilet break there. It'll be interesting to see if we didn't miss where a kill was stashed close to where she was lying up earlier. But I've got a feeling that she doesn't have a kill here, and she's heading back here in search of something else. In all likelihood, a male leopard. And like I said, as we found her, this was the exact area where we did see the Anderson male for the first time, very close to where we saw her lying up. And maybe he's lying up in that very same place now, waiting for her. This is the golden hour of sunlight now. I'm sure a lot of you are getting some great screenshots. She's just behind that fallen down tree at 1 o'clock. Yeah, straight in there. Oh no, she just lay down. So we're going to reposition. She may be lying there for some time now. Gap there, Jim. Well, one male leopard who we haven't been talking about is Mvula, and I'm told Lynn and Molly would like to know if we have any updates on him. And he was seen yesterday, and I believe it was on Cheetah Plains, so quite far east of our property, but he has been seen and he is healthy, and sadly we are probably going to be seeing less and less of Mvula now that Tingana has evidently pushed into his territory on Juma. But what it will mean is that we do see more of Tingana and also the Anderson male. So hopefully now we'll be able to see all three of them and not just two. But I don't think we are going to be seeing nearly as much of Mvula as we did in the first few months of this broadcast. Oh, she's on the move again. Just a little breather was all she needed. It would be well, our luck continues, everyone. As I was saying, I wonder how far she's moved and how much energy she's had to expend since we saw her mating with Tingana last a few mornings ago. That was with Brent, but I think she would have covered some serious mileage and not had time to eat or hunt, and that's why she's looking quite thin. And I hope we do get to see her with a kill soon, and not only with a kill but also with Sindile, all of them together with a kill, because I'm sure a lot of you are concerned about young Sindile. I don't think there's anything to worry about, but maybe that's just because I'm giving him too much credit. He certainly has won me over. Now, because we have been at this sighting for long, the vehicle and the third vehicle that has now just arrived, I'm going to try and give them preference into the best spots, and we're just going to hang back. That way we allow them to have their turn to show their guests some great views. It also means we will be putting less pressure on shadow. One problem that we may face is that if she does head much further west, she will head into a property where we are no... And another call. As I was saying, that she will be heading into a property where we will not be permitted to go to. But we've still got a few more before that happens, but it is going to be a possible problem we encounter in the next few minutes, so I'd like to warn you rather than all getting a surprise when she disappears and we have to stay behind. It's very bouncy on the back seat where VM is. It's a lot more comfortable for us up front. So she hasn't headed back into the exact area that we left her. She's come slightly further north of that. And I think she only veered off her initial path to go and have a drink. She used to spend a lot of time in and around the Arathusa camp, close to where she did have her drink now, so she knows this area very, very well. It's only more recently that the Anderson male has pushed Tingana further east and into her territory, thus posing a threat to Sindile. She has cleverly moved further east as well, therefore taking Sindile away from the possible threat that is the Anderson male. Alone though, Anderson male is a useful male for her to know and to keep up relationships with, because he does border into her territory, and she knows that her cubs are not safe unless he thinks that he isn't the father of them. So I think that is her mission now. I wonder what young Sindile is doing this very second. Okay, well, I think we know one sneaky track that may get us another view of her. So Let's try that and see what happens next. It's actually the same track that Liam, one of the Sibambili guides, who sadly actually left into another reserve a month or so ago. Anyway, Liam helped me with something, and he told me about the sneaky little that can get you access into the riverbed. I just need to remember what it is now. Unless I am lost. I am lost, but I see a way that we can get in. So it's not place it's going to get us right.
Sorry everybody, James is off the vehicle tracking. Let's see if we can find him. Going in. What have we got there? Aha! James, of course, has no idea that we're live. James! James! Here he comes. Faster, James! James, we laugh, James, we laugh.
Hello everybody. I believe we're live. Well, there's a hell of a thing. Sorry, we were just off the vehicle trying to find a sign of Conuma. I'm quite breathless. Let me just take 1 second to catch my breath. Okay, so sorry about that. I was off tracking and I'm trying to find Conuma. Brent had him in this area this morning. Found him on foot, couldn't get in the vehicle. Brent's come back into the area. He's walking along here and the tracks are heading this way. So I thought I'd just walk through there while we weren't live, of course, and see if I could find anything. I didn't. And then I heard a great wailing. And it wasn't, in fact, an animal alarm calling. It was Andrew shouting that we were live. So here we are. So that's what's going on in this neck of the woods. We have seen a couple of buffalo bulls, one of whom has a horribly gouged out eye that I think an oxpecker's had a go at. But otherwise, not much to report, other than the sun, than that the sun, as you can see, is now starting to set in a rather magnificent way through the smoky horizon. Okay, I think my heart rate's right down again to about 157. And I can breathe again. Right. Okay, so we're going to carry on around this area. Brent is coming sort of through this part of the block, and we'll see if he doesn't come up with something. Lost my radio. Here we go. Okay. And just to keep you posted, Scott is still with Shadow, but he is still black screen, I'm afraid. So you don't have any view of him at the moment. Andrew, how long were you live before I arrived back at the car?
We followed you for a little bit, let's just say that.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed my athletic leap there. It wasn't, unfortunately, because I was being chased by a leopard. I thought there's only one reason, there were two reasons that Andrew could be yelling at me. One is that he spotted the Conuma, and the other is that we're live. And John, thank you for your query as to whether I was marking my territory. I wasn't actually when Andrew called. I'd have to confess that I did have a brief moment of relief just prior to that. But no, I wasn't marking my territory when we went live. It's turning into a beautiful evening after a relatively sort of cloudy day, which has kept the temperature nice and cool. Lovely smell of the bush this time of year. A bit of elephant dung, a bit of dust, and that lovely dry grass smell. That's one of my favorite smells, I think, out here. And just around where the final control is, somebody has planted some fever trees, which don't occur here naturally. There's not normally enough water. And a fever tree is a kind of an acacia tree, and they have just come into flower, and there's a lovely subtle sweet scent around that area now. So the signs of spring are in the air, as you can tell from my leaping run. Anyway, I'm not sure where old Conuma is. And yes, thank you, Rita. Andrew was doing an alarm call. It certainly sounded fairly alarmed. Andrew, did you put your face in front of the camera?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay. Then he probably would really have alarm call. His head is looking much better after the ministrations of the Zizifoot. Andrew, can you see the spider's web? Do you think you can get it?
I could see it now.
Let me go back a bit. Sorry, everybody. I spotted a tropical tent web spider. It just was shining so beautifully in the sun. Seems to have there. It's not. I don't think the camera's going to. Oh, there it is. You got it there. No, camera's not really picking it up, I'm afraid. That's it in the middle of your screen, just at the horizon there. That's a tropical tent web spider. That's just reflecting this gorgeous golden light. And thank you, Natasha. You said that I have said whatever you do, don't run. Yes, I've said that on many, many occasions to people when I've taken them for walks. And of course the reason that you're not supposed to run is that if you surprise an animal, like a charging lion for example, and you run away, obviously the chances are it will see you as prey. And likewise, if you're in a group and you say surprise a buffalo, if everybody runs off in a different direction, it's very difficult to control what happens. In that particular case, however, I wasn't being chased by anything, nothing that I saw. And so it was important to get back to Andrew, as Andrew's wailing very quickly to see exactly what the matter was. Very pleasant little jog. So I'm just going to stop here on the drainage line where Gunuma was seen, and we'll get an idea of the kind of sort of location he was in and how difficult it would be to get a vehicle in there. So he was found up there sometime this morning. Probably just sort of relaxing on the sand, I think he was doing. I don't think he had a kill, and Brent doesn't seem to think he did. And then he's headed off towards that road, towards that area where you saw me running, but it is a big block, and so the chances of finding him are small, but certainly not impossible. And of course, when a leopard is on the hunt, as opposed to trying to mark territory, they don't often walk in a very straight and obvious line. So when they're marking territory, the thing that they do is to follow a fairly well-defined path, often a road, and that's often why we find them walking along the road. But when they're hunting, they tend to walk up and down. And they'll sniff around here and then turn 90 degrees and then turn 180 degrees. So it really does become a bit hit and miss when you're tracking them on the hunt. Anyway, we might be lucky. Let's continue on our merry way, slowly, without running. Thank you, Natasha. And while I'm driving along here, it does remind me, Itch. Itch is a new viewer from Pretoria. And Itch, you wanted to know a bit more about the lion prides, and I'm going to give you a very brief summary. Basically, Juma's main lion viewing is provided by a pride of lions called the Umkahumas, and they are 4 adult lionesses, 2 young lionesses, and a male lion. And then there are other prides, Styx to the south, Talamati to the north, and there are 8 lions in the Talamati pride. Styx pride split into 3 little groups. At the moment, the one that we see is 2 lionesses and 1 recently saved cub. 2 of its siblings were killed by the new dominant coalition in this area, or they're taking it over, called the Birmingham Boys or the Birmingham 5. So that's the basic idea of what's going on with the lions here. Off to the west and south, there's also the Tsalala pride and various others, but that's the basic idea. Right, Scott is back online. We're going to head back to Shadow, and I'll see you in just a little while.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm so jealous I didn't get to see James sprinting back towards the vehicle with Andrew commentating. I'll be sure to dig up that archive and have a look. As you can see, the sun is soon going to set below the horizon, and it's a beautiful, beautiful still evening here in the Lowveld of South Africa. Shadow is fast asleep, not far from us, so she's taking a much needed break from what's already been a busy afternoon and certainly a busy few days. There's another vehicle just joining the sighting now, and isn't it remarkable how she's so relaxed around the vehicles and aware that we pose no threat to her that she didn't even lift her head up to have a look. I'm told there's a lot of viewers who are interested in heading back towards the monitor lizards to see if they are still mating, and if you weren't with us earlier, there was 2 large Nile monitor lizards who looked to be courting, and they were quite close to Shadow. Thankfully they didn't get busy doing any mating, because that, I'm sure, would have given their position away to her, and she could very well have pounced on one and fed on it. Would have been a great little meal for her. So, now that she is asleep, it's difficult to predict how long she will stay like this. And because some of you are interested in going and seeing the monitor lizards, I am going to open this decision to the floor. So it's up to you, the viewers, to send through your requests, and whoever votes the most for either going to the monitor lizards or for staying here will determine what we do next. So it's very easy. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter to send through your vote. Shadow or monitor lizards? On email, you can send it through to questions@wildearth.tv. And for now, that she's not providing us with any major entertainments, I think the sunset may be the next best bet. Oh, she just lifted up her head though as I said that. I'll keep an eye on her, and why don't you enjoy the sunset? We've got a wonderful vantage from up here. And it's only going to be a few minutes before it ducks below the horizon. Just to let you know, her head is back down and she's fast asleep, so whatever she did hear earlier that pricked up her ears and her attention was obviously nothing too important. I'm surprised earlier on when we were at the treehouse waterhole with the large herd of buffalo bulls, I said that the bush was quite quiet, but that we could expect it to increase with volume and life as the evening cools down. There's still not too much birdsong in this area though. I can just hear 1 or 2 fork-tailed drongos calling. But other than that, not much in the way of bird song. Well, thank you very much for all casting your votes so quickly. and almost everyone that has voted is leaning towards the monitor lizards. So we'll have one last look at the sleeping shadow and wish her the best for whatever action and adventures the night brings for her. And I think my goal is to come back onto Arethusa tomorrow morning and see if we can't find her or any further updates on as to what she may have got up to tonight. So that is my plans already for tomorrow morning. But for now, it's time to say goodbye and thank you for another wonderful, wonderful sighting with this leopard. We're going to be seeing a lot more of her as the months unfold. And I'm really happy that the Anderson male has done what he has, pushed further into Tingana's territory, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be seeing nearly as much of this leopard as we have been. Anyway, like I said, it's time to go, so let's carry on and go and look for those monitor lizards. Hello everyone, how are you doing? Good, enjoy. We would show you, but you'd have to sign papers first. Next time. Cheers. Some of the guests on that other vehicle said it felt like they were on TV, and sadly we can't show them. And I did touch on it a little bit earlier, how sometimes the cameraman will have to do some funky maneuvers to avoid showing the camera, to avoid showing you the vehicle, but still show you the animal that everyone's looking at. And it's quite simple because we don't have their release forms allowing us to film them and broadcast them across the internet. We try and avoid doing that as much as possible. So we just probably 2 or 3 minutes away from where those monitor lizards were. I will be very surprised if they're still there, but it is certainly worth going and having a look to see if you don't get lucky.
Okay, I'm ready when you are. Let's get some sun action. Andrew?
Oh yeah.
It's nice that the only action we've got today has been from the... Oh! There we are. I'm back with you, everyone. Hello. I'm still in the car. I wasn't running towards the vehicle. And I think while we've lost signal with Scott, what we'll do is we'll just have a look at the magnificent setting sun behind this little grove of marula trees. About there. Does that work for you at all, Andrew?
A little bit backwards. Let's see if we can go from between there.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we go. I'm afraid I left Brent to try and find Kunyuma. He is on foot still, but obviously with the light fading, I thought it best to try and see if we could find 1 or 2 other things. And what I'm doing now is we're in the area where Sindile has been for the last 4 days, and given that his mum is with Scott not too far from this area that we're in now, we're kind of hoping that we might bump into young Sindile while we're here. I did hear him. Now this is going to be quite controversial, of course, and it may result in Twitter exploding, but he apparently, Sindile has been officially named now by the rangers who found him, and they have given him the name MADIBA. Now MADIBA, for those of you who don't know, is the name of the father of our nation, basically Nelson Mandela. It's one of the praise names of his clan, MADIBA. And so that's why Sindile has that name. I feel the jury is slightly out as to whether Sindile's playful nature is up there with the sort of austere statesmanship of MADIBA, Nelson Mandela. But there it is. That's what he's been named by the rangers at Arethusa. Well, you don't have to call him that, of course. You can carry on calling him Sindile or anything you like, really. But just to keep you posted on developments, and we'll let you decide what we at WildEarth are going to call him going forward from here. Okay? Right, let's carry on. The sun is just about to peep down over the horizon, and I'm hoping we're going to see young Sindile, aka MADIBA, the younger. Perhaps a bit later. Oh, Andrew, let's just, sorry, can we just stop here and watch the rest of the sun going down? It's got about 25 seconds to go, and it's very large and very beautiful. It's always good to be still, I feel, when the sun is just sinking. Crested francolins shouting at each other, ring-necked doves calling, cracking of an of a tree in the distance from an elephant. Always amazing how fast the sun does set here, and how soon afterwards it will be dark. Just a little bit more. There it goes. Bye, sun. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you, Andrew. On that very peaceful note, we'll see if we can find a young leopard. It is an absolutely stunning sky. Sorry about the signal around where Scott is, but at least you have had some wonderful time with Shadow, doing some amazing calling, and that is just, Andrew, that's spectacular.
It is nice, eh?
It's definitely much prettier than looking at me. You keep it on the sky. Everybody, that's what we experience most nights. Quite lucky, aren't we? Oh, beautiful. And I'm back. Sorry about that. So we're now on a road called Philemon's Pipeline, sorry. And this is round about where Sindile was seen in the last 4 days. Didn't find him this morning, but we didn't have his tracks leaving this area either. And sorry, going back to the woodpecker before you were whipped away to watch beautiful Shadow with her monitor lizard. We were looking at a woodpecker, and it was a cardinal woodpecker. I checked it up. So thank you, Deba and Julia, for reminding me that I hadn't quite identified it. I thought it was a cardinal woodpecker, but there was something about it that made me just want to check the book. But it was indeed a cardinal woodpecker. Now, that's a bit deceptive, that name, because most of the woodpeckers have got a little red cap on the back. Certainly the males or the females. And the cardinal woodpecker is obviously the only one that is named for the red cap. We get 3 other woodpecker species here. The bearded, which we often hear in the mornings going ta 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 ta. They find a hollow piece of leadwood or knobthorn and they make a territorial tap in the mornings. And the golden-tailed, which makes a very kind of whiny long call, which I'm not going to do for you. And then the last one is the bennets. And the bennets likes to hang around on the ground. They feed on the ground. So if you find a woodpecker on the ground, it's more than likely a Bennett's woodpecker. I don't know who who Mr. Bennett was. I should probably find out. Joan, in England, I'm glad that this is, you agree with my identification of the cardinal woodpecker, and you seem to be keeping a bird list, which is fantastic. And you say that there are now 135 birds on your list. Well, Joan, we'll try and make that list a little longer. This area is home to at least probably 200 and, not a real stretch, 250 to 260 birds. So we should be able to increase your 135 quite nicely, especially as the summer months come along. I will show you a picture a little bit later. I just wanted to get into the area where I thought Sindile was. Now the sun, Andrew has just spotted, has not quite disappeared. It disappeared where we were before, but we're actually going to get 2 sunsets in one day. Andrew, I'll stop just down here. It'll be quite a nice view of it. Oh, that is just magnificent. We really topped off nicely. Young Sindile is sitting on a termite mound just nearby. There we go. Second sunset shot of the day. Can't ever have too many sunsets. And I'll find you the woodpecker while Andrew shows you the magnificent sinking, blazing crimson ball. And is that the best colour we can get out of this thing? There we go. Just sinking beneath the last of the clouds. There's also some smoke in the air. Very quiet evening, I must say. Right, so here are the woodpeckers, all conveniently the ones that we get here on one page. That's the cardinal there, with his little cardinal's cap. There's the golden-tailed, I think, yes, golden-tailed. They've all got golden tails though, so that's not really diagnostic, but most of the male and female of the golden-tailed have got red caps. And that's the bearded, which makes his noise in the morning. Much heavier build, much larger species than the others. And then that's the bennets with a pale front and feeds on the ground. So that's the best way to identify the bennets. So those are the 4 woodpecker species that we find over here. Right, we're now going to drive very slowly down around this area and see if my favorite little friend Sindile doesn't pop his head up. He's starting to wander probably more widely than he did in the last few days, because it's now been 3 days since he's seen his mum. We'll watch quite carefully for tracks on the ground. And we'll look around to see. This is when he starts to get a bit playful, which is quite nice. I did see a kohan just in here, and the other day he was stalking a kohan and seemed to be slightly intimidated by it, didn't really know what to do. There he is. He's on the termite mound there.
Well spotted.
Woo! That's so exciting. Hello, little fella. Hello, boy. Look at him standing up to say hi to us. This is so wonderful. Hello, little chap. Sorry for the noise and the intrusion. Andrew, can you get a shot? Can you get a shot there?
Yeah, I can.
Is that right?
That's good.
And there he is, everybody. What a stroke of luck that was. Isn't that lovely? Oh, wow. I actually couldn't believe it when I looked at the termite mound and saw him there. Hello, little fella. He and his mum really do like to sit on termite mounds. I think more than any leopard I've ever seen, this is the one I've wanted to walk up to and just tickle him behind the ears. He's so cool. And being bugged by the flies. Andrew, maybe you need to give him one of your buffs. I think he's been around here the whole day, you know. Scott did walk through here this morning, but, you know, these leopard, they are so difficult to find. Andrew and I walked through the same area the other morning and completely missed him. Sweet. Oh, while we're looking at little Sindile, who is now also known as MADIBA by the rangers who found him, Cecilia, you spell MADIBA M-A-D-I-B-A. M-A-D-I-B-A. What a beautiful color that is. So not a bad drive, really. I mean, I know we didn't have a great view of Quarantine, and for those of you who are wondering, he did head further south into Chitwa, and so I'm afraid another viewing of him wasn't possible. But we've had 3 really nice leopard sightings now on one drive. Looks a little sad, I feel. Andrew?
Missing mommy.
Missing his mum. Now, the Quarantine sighting we had was not the southern border's close to here, but it was about 3 or 4 kilometers to the east of here. So Sandy and Ellen, Quarantine was about 3 or 4 kilometers as the crow flies from here, so a long way away. And Kunyuma, in a slightly different direction, but the similar sort of distance, he was more in a northeasterly direction as opposed to sort of due east, which Quarantine was. So they're quite a long way away from him. And as far as I'm aware, Shadow is at the Arathusa waterhole, or somewhere around there, and that's about, I mean, that's even further, that's probably 6 k's. Yeah, maybe not quite that far, maybe 5 kilometers as the crow flies. The This is where one does long for a long still photography lens. Because you don't get views like this of a leopard very often. Well, except from this chap. Beautiful colours. It really makes that uneven ground on the termite mound look extremely comfortable, doesn't it? Now, for those who don't perhaps know, Sindile's mother is Shadow, who you've been watching all day, and his father is someone called, or not someone, is a leopard called Tingana, and they were seen mating yesterday, 2 days ago, and I think yesterday morning, and apparently she was mating again with the Anderson male, who's another territorial male in the area. So she may well fall pregnant. Now Heike would like to know what will happen if she does fall pregnant. You know, what will the relationship with her mother be like? Now Heike, I believe you're a new viewer, so you're welcome and thank you for your question. It's a good one, it's a pertinent one, and what is going to happen, I think, is that, and we don't know for sure, because she has come into estrus, his mother's come into estrus much earlier than expected, at least 3 months before the sort of earliest known one before, or the earliest known successful birth interval before. And so we think what will probably happen is that she will fall pregnant, have the cubs, and he will just tag along with her until he's ready to kind of move away. And that has been seen before. I've seen it before at Londolozi. Scott mentioned a particular incident of a female leopard who gave birth, I think it was only about 18 months after her son was born. She gave birth again, and he was a young leopard like this, so about 3 months more advanced than, or no, about 5 months more advanced than old Sindile is here. And he just tagged along with the group. He did feed off her kills sometimes, and there was no aggression shown to the new cubs. So I hope that that's what's going to happen here. Thanks for that, Heike. Welcome to it. And please keep sending through your questions. Oh dear, sneeze. And I must just call this in on the radio. You'll excuse me 1 second. Stations located Shadow's Cub Junction, Rebecca's Road and Triple M is the best approach. The animal is about 50 meters to the north of that junction on Voyatella. That's just to be courteous, everybody. And for those who perhaps don't know, we are on radio communication with the other game drives around the place, and we help them and they help us with sightings. And so we do call in sightings like this in case somebody else wants to come and have a look. We're just talking about him eating and whether he is eating and drinking and that sort of thing. And Jennifer in St. Louis and Stephanie, you would like to know basically what do I think about what he's eating and is he eating? I think he is eating. I think he's catching stuff on his own. I don't think that he looks thin. I think, Jennifer, you said you thought his belly looked a bit skinny. I don't think it does. I think he looks all right. He's not drinking, that's for sure, unless he's going off to Treehouse Waterhole, which is not a particularly salubrious drinking spot. But remember that leopards don't have to drink water. As long as they're killing or getting enough to eat and the kills are fresh, they will get sufficient water from what they eat, from what they kill. So if he's killing francolins and the odd lizard and perhaps the odd hapless dwarf mongoose, he'll be getting enough water. That said, I'm sure he could do with a good feed. We haven't seen him with anything for the last little while, but remember that he will have most of his success at night. So I think he is eating small things. Andrew, what do you think? I think
he's eating small things.
Yeah, he doesn't look particularly skinny to me at all. So Jennifer and Stephanie, don't worry. Well, not yet. Continued concern, this time from the west coast, at least the east coast of the States. Gail in Rhode Island. You say, would he have heard his mother's vocalizations from this afternoon? That rasping call that she's been making. No, I don't think so. I think she's too far away now for him to have heard that. It's not impossible, but I really think that 5 kilometers is probably even beyond the hearing skills of the magnificent African leopard that you're looking at now. And you say, will the odd squirrel be enough for him to eat? Well, it depends on how many squirrels and francolins he's able to kill. And so, I mean, 1 or 2 every 2 days, probably not. But if he eats 2 francolins a day, it'll be more than sufficient. And I think that he will start to lose condition quite quickly if he doesn't eat. Remember, the lions are the most obvious because their coats are not quite as magnificent as the leopards. And when they're hungry, they're thin. I mean, that's because they eat only meat, it gets digested. They don't lay on fat like sort of other animals do, and especially like we do. And so what that means is when they're hungry, they look skinny. And I don't think he looks skinny at all. I think he looks all right. Looks a bit sad, maybe. But I don't think he looks skinny. Thanks for that, Gail. I must confess that I do share many of your concerns for his well-being. Each day that goes by that Shadow doesn't come past, there is a little bit of concern. And I mean, I think he's killing, but I'd like to actually see genuine evidence of him with something in his mouth. I know that we have filmed him with mongoose and with francolin in his mouth before. But I'd like to see him do a bit more. I have seen him make some pretty basic errors in hunting and botch some fairly good opportunities. So I do share your concerns, but I don't think at the moment he's in any kind of danger. And of course, we do get back to the inevitable discussion of the natural system. And how things do the wilderness can be a tremendously harsh place. It's not always a place of complete peace, which is why I live out here. Sometimes it's a place of unforgiving harshness. But I think it's the prospect of that possibly makes it so enlivening. I wonder how long he's been sat on this mound. He and his mum definitely do like termite mounds, and there are 2 or 3 in this particular area that he's been seen on quite often. You can just see this late winter vegetation, very grey and brown, and to some people it does look harsh. And I'm speaking about the harshness of the wilderness. But when you get used to it, when you've been out here for a while, this time of the year really does represent something of a time of expectation, especially as some of the trees start to sprout. He's now in sweet repose. That means he's sleeping, Andrew. Right, we're going to nip across to Scott now with Shadow, his wonderful mother. Well, I'm not sure she's a wonderful mother, but she's certainly a wonderful leopard. We're going to head across to Scott, and I'll see you in just a little while.
Welcome back, everyone, and well done to James for finding Sindile. What a wonderful way to wrap up this afternoon, having spent so much time with his mother earlier on, and obviously still concerned a little bit about him. It's great that James found him to reassure everyone that he's still okay, and James certainly does have a knack of finding him. It would be interesting to know how many times in total James has found him, because I think he's slowly creeping ahead the rest of us. So James knows all his secret hiding places. And it's not only Shadow and Sindile that we've seen, but also a distant visual of quarantine early on. So 3 different leopards, really interesting stuff. And I'm told that a lot of you were really interested by the fact that we got to see those 2 monitor lizards together. They're the Nile monitor lizards, and I'm glad you got to see them. It is an interesting sighting. It was actually with VM when I did manage to see 2 of them, what we thought was mating, the other day, or probably a few months ago. But other than that, I've never seen 2 of them together interacting like that. So really interesting stuff. And like I said, they could well have been courting. That would have been my guess. They can fight quite aggressively with one another, and what they'll do when they do fight is they'll bring their tail parallel to their body, so the tip of their tail's next to their head, and then they'll flip it out at high speeds, and that tail's incredibly hard, and they'll do the same thing to defend themselves against humans. And you wouldn't want one of those animals to wallop you with their very hard tail. Those ones that we saw were probably, at least the bigger one was at least about 1 meter in length, and they sometimes get a little bit bigger than that, which is hard to believe. But what awesome animals, and glad we got to see that. And sorry we had to rush off to follow Shadow. There was some really potentially interesting stuff going to happen there with all of the vocalizations that she was doing. Anyway, it's time for me to wrap up so that you can get back and spend a few more minutes with James and Sindile. But a big thanks for following the show this afternoon. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks VM on camera, and a big thank you to Kirsty, Tara and Nikki, all in the final control room. Back to James, and we'll see you all in the morning for the next adventure.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga and little Sindile, who has lifted his rather forlorn looking head up, and I'm afraid there seems to be a disturbance from behind us. A vehicle full of people seems to be moving in here with the stealth of a raging buffalo. Anyway, it has been a very marvelous afternoon, and I'm just going to, well, let's just wait for them to stop. So I think what will happen from here is that he will probably spend some of the time sleeping tonight. I know a good friend of mine had some guests who wanted to follow a leopard the whole night, and he said a leopard sleeps a lot during the night. So I think this leopard will probably sleep quite a lot during the night, and he may well then go off and try and hunt something around this particular area. I think, again, it's going to be small stuff. I'm looking forward to the day that he makes his first sort of steenbok or duiker kill. He's definitely big enough to start taking things like steenbok now, and especially when you see the things that quarantine and Kunuma are catching now. I mean, sub-adult kudu, which are enormous animals. He's not near to being at that level just yet, but hopefully he will be fairly soon. And like I say, I do share many of your concerns for his safety over the next little while. But, you know, this is how goes out here, and it's a continual learning experience about what's going to happen and what isn't, because the textbooks are constantly found wanting in terms of their predictions and what they think is going to happen with animals and how they have interpreted animal behavior. And likewise, many of the rangers and interpreters in this area have ended up with egg on their faces, me included, many times, by making predictions that then just simply don't come true. So I'm hoping that he's going to join up with his mum once she's pregnant, and that he will continue with her until his independence, which should be at around about 2 years. The male's about 2 years. He could probably go independent quite successfully from about 18 months, dependent on his skills and experience. Right, so it's been an incredible afternoon. A big thank you to Andrew. Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you.
His welt on his head is no less amusing than it was this morning, but it does seem to be healing. And I'm sorry for the technical difficulties that we had. A big thanks to Scott and VM for their trip terra incognito to the west, there into Arethusa. And of course a huge thanks to the 3 girls, the 3 little maids from school. I seem to remember the song goes, sitting in the final control, Kirsty the redhead, Nikki the blonde, and Tara the brunette. And of course a big thanks to our technical crew, who do an astonishing job to bring you a high definition signal from here in the wilds of the Kruger National Park. And lastly, a huge thank you to all of you who continue to stimulate my mind every drive with your comments and your questions, and you really do make me think, and I thank you for that very much. We're going to spend the last little while, probably about 40 seconds or so, just looking at young Sindile and getting a last glimpse in the fading light of this magnificent African day. Wherever you are in the world, please have a wonderful evening, wonderful morning, wonderful afternoon, mid-morning, whatever it happens to be where you are. Have a great day and keep safe, and we'll see you again tomorrow during the magnificent African dawn. Bye-bye.